right. So we're back. We're back live for the service. Second Maccabees, the 10th chapter. Continue along in the story. So I keep it down. So it says in 2 Maccabees 10:1, it says, now Maccabees and his company, the Lord guiding them, recovered the temple and the city. But the altars which the heathen had built in the open street and also the chapels, they pulled down, right? So this is what we read during the feast of the rededication of the altar last year, pertaining to when they came and they fought against certain of the Greeks, and they were able to go back into the temple, cleanse it, take the polluted stones out, bring the goodly stones in, leave certain priests of a goodly report in the temple to take care of their affairs. They went and built up the strongholds, and most importantly, they took away the abomination of desolation from out of the temple. That was the altar on top of our altar. That was removed, right? And then it says, the altars which the heathen had in the open street, they also had pulled down. And the ones they had in other chapels, little smaller versions of sanctuaries, they pulled those down as well. Said verse 3, and having cleansed the temple, they made another altar, and striking stones, they took fire out of them and offered a sacrifice after 2 years, and set forth incense and lights and showbread. So after they cleansed it, it took that period of time for them to begin the normal order of what was going on in the temple, because it took time for them to get the right priests and things, you know, operating again as it was during the time when they first set it up. So keep in mind when Moses got the commandment from the Most High, him and Aaron, to set up the tabernacle, right, it took him a year to go and get everything set up, to get the tabernacle reared up, right? So, you know, it's just not an instantaneous thing when you have to do reconstruction and cleansing and getting the right people and stuff involved and picking up on the service of the Most High's temple.
Right. So one especially get wet. You know, that's gonna take some time.
Right. You know, you got things this way, and then you got to find the right persons. Right. You got to find the right priests in the midst of you going through a war, right? Because they're going through battles, they're going through wars. So you got to set up everything. They had to fortify the city. They didn't just cleanse the temple, but they built it up too. They fortified around the walls and all of that to secure it. So that takes time, you know. Like it's not like how you know people build houses, buildings now. They just set up a frame and they build around it real quick, and it takes about 6-7 months. How it was done in the past, they use actual stones and things to build it. That thing has to settle before you continuously build on it. So it took them a while. After 2 years, then they began to get back in that normal order. It says in verse 4, when that was done, they fell flat down and besought the Lord that they might come no more into such troubles. But if they had sinned any more against him, that he himself would chasten them with mercy, and that they might not be delivered into the blasphemous and barbarous nations, or barbarous nations, right? So we always rather fall into the hands of the Most High, because we know the Lord will give us mercy, right? Same thing happened to David when he was given a choice of what form of punishment he wanted to receive. If he wanted to fall into the hands of the Most High, fall into the hands of this other nation or some plague, of course he was choosing the Most High, because the Most High will give you mercy. It tells you in Psalms 138, the Most High's mercy endureth forever, right? So it's like a parent to a child. Sometimes a parent may have a little mercy and say, all right, I was going to do such and such, but I'm going to have mercy. I'm going to pardon you on this one. I'm going to let you go on this one. If it seems that you found the error in your way and you recognize it, I won't go as harsh as I wanted to go. Okay. I was at level 10, I'll give you 6. Right? Whereas the other ones won't have that same remorse. The nation is going to give you 10. Because they know they know your position, they know how you're favored, they know your history, right? They want to take full advantage and keep you suppressed, so they're not going to give up. They're not going to give you any mercy, whereas the Lord will. So that's what the men here, after they regained and cleansed the temple, fell down and prayed to the Most High that He wouldn't allow that to happen to them anymore. But if it did happen because of sin, that He would have mercy on them. He wouldn't let them be destroyed, because some people died in this war, this fight. Some people died. Judas died, Jonathan died, Mattathias died. You had some great figures for the nation, leaders for the people that didn't survive, that fell in the war. So you always want to have a place of repentance open up to the Most High, that he could come in and intervene and help fight and help defend, give you peace, like during Solomon's reign. Solomon had a period of a while where he didn't see any war in his time, right? Where other kings went through war, right? Verse 5, now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day it was cleansed, even the 25th day of the same month, which is Caslu, right? This evening during the new moon, I touched on how when we read in Ecclesiasticus 43, it says the month gets its name from the moon. First month, second month, third month, but you'll have certain names of the months based on captivity, right? So when we read this same thing in First Maccabees, the 4th chapter, you find out that this Caslu represents the 9th month. It's the 9th month. That word Caslu is a name for the month, but it comes in on the 9th moon.
You say First Maccabees.
First Maccabees 4:52. So I think we did that last year at some point when I one of the classes I went through and went through the names of the months, the scriptures that had certain names associated with them. Some of them have several names for one month. Some of them have no names. It's just the 3rd or 4th month, right? But this one here, when you look into history, comes from one of the captivities. Caslu is the 9th month. And it says on the very same day that they had profaned it, which was a year prior, Judas was able to recover it and then cleanse it. So that's like if today's the 17th, right. It'd be like last year's 17th, someone came in here and tore up the school. Okay. And all of a sudden on this day, we was able to come and cleanse it up, fix it up a year later. Right, so that's what happened with them. They were able to reclaim and regain the temple, and then rededicate it back to the Most High on that day. So now, as it reads again, it says, "Now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, and on the very same day it was cleansed again, even the 25th day of the same month, which is Caslu. And they kept 8 days with gladness, as in the Feast of the Tabernacles, remembering that not long afore that they had held the Feast of the Tabernacles, when as they wandered in the mountains and dens like beasts," right? So we read in First Maccabees that when the heathens came through, they came round about and started coming through our cities and coming through our towns and forcing us to follow their ways, that Mattathias and his family and all who were like him fled into the mountains. They left the cities where the Greeks came in and pushed that influence, and they went up into the mountains, and they stayed up in the mountains. So while they were up in the mountains, it says they still kept the Feast of the Tabernacles even up there in the mountains. Right. They pitched tents the same way how the Most High had us pitch tents for 7 days. They did that in the mountains. But it says they did that in the mountains when they wandered around like beasts, because they up in the mountain, they left their own homes, right, to go and live up in the mountains, fleeing from that wickedness that was going on in the city. But they kept the tabernacles. Now, as they had kept the tabernacles when they was there, here comes the time when you're about to keep the when you rededicating the altar. So they wanted to memorialize that event. So the priests ordained that they keep that every year, but they kept it the same way, like the Feast of the Tabernacles. Mm-hmm. So the Feast of the Rededication of the Altar is for 8 days, like the Tabernacles, right? Kept that same vibration, because now as we read on, it says, verse 7, therefore they bear branches and fair boughs and palms also, and sang psalms unto him that had given them good success in cleansing his place, right? So we read this, all of these different palms and things, when we read the ordinance pertaining to the Feast of the Tabernacles. Go to Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. And 39. Actually, I'm going to start at 34. Leviticus 23 and 34. So Leviticus 23:34 says, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of the tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. On the first day shall be an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And on the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you. And ye shall offer an fire made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no work therein. So that's what we did for the tabernacles. Now, when we jump to the 40th verse, it says, and ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook, and ye shall rejoice before Yahweh your power 7 days, right? So this is during the Feast of the Tabernacle. So that's why we're reading here now in 2 Maccabees 10 and 7, where it says, therefore they bear branches and fair boughs and palms also, because they're keeping it the same way as how they kept the Feast of the Tabernacles. All right. So this is where that ordinance comes from, that statute, when we keep the rededication of the altar. So now back in 2 Maccabees 10. It says in verse 8, they ordained also by a common statute and decree that every year those days should be kept of the whole nation of the Jews, right? So the same way it was 8 days, 7 days, and then on the 8th day was a holy convocation. We keep doing the rededication of the altar 8 days, right? It says, and this was the end of Antiochus called Epiphanes. So now we jumping back to Antiochus of what we was reading about in the last chapter, right? And how he died of an incurable disease, yeah. Right? So now it says, now this is the end of Antiochus Epiphanes. Now it's about to move on from the place that we left off before. It says, now will we declare the acts of Antiochus Eupator, who was the son of this wicked man, gathering briefly the calamities of the war. So now it's moving on, and now it's about to focus on his son Eupator. It says, so when he was come to the crown, he set one Lysias over the affairs of his realm and appointed him chief governor of Cilicia and Phenice, right? So now Lysias was the one who had been bringing or grooming him all the while, right? That was the one, that was the man that his father had left in charge to watch over him, that we read in Maccabees, the 3rd chapter, when he was leaving to go to Persia. He left that same man, Lysias, over his son. So now here it is where his son is coming to his power. He's going to remember Lysias, and he left him and made him governor over certain realms, right? He didn't forget, you know, he'll probably have a good bond, and he's probably like a so-called quote-unquote father figure to him, right, if he was left to bring him up, or a big brother or whatsoever. Right. So he now has been awarded with a title and land or realm to govern. It says in verse 12, for Ptolemaeus, that was called Macron, choosing rather to do justice unto the Jews for the wrong that had been done unto them, endeavored to continue peace with them, right? So here is this individual, Ptolemaeus. When you read his history, he was supposed to be over another realm, but remembering down that Antiochus Epiphanes had made this decree to keep peace with the Jews, he wanted to continue that peace. But this now is a new regime, right? It says he wanted to endeavor to continue peace with them. Verse 13, whereupon, being accused of the king's friends before Eupator, and called traitor at every word, because he had left Cyprus that Philometor had committed unto him, and departed to Antiochus Epiphanes. And seeing that he was in no honorable place, he was so discouraged that he poisoned himself and died, right? So he was given a position to be over another area in Cyprus, and he left that to go and be with Antiochus Epiphanes, who just died, right? And Antiochus Epiphanes had already at one time said he was going to destroy the Jews. It was commonly known that he was going to try to destroy the Jews. He had different men set up all around to destroy the Jews. Right. But when he got that disease, he had a change of heart. But not everybody had that change of heart, right? He did. And now we also see that this man, Ptolemaeus, he had that, right? That was called Macron. But he wasn't well favored. He would go and try to continue that peace. And when the others started to see what he was doing, they labeled him a traitor, right? And he got no honor amongst the people. So much so that it caused them so much grief that what did he do? He went and poisoned himself and died, right? Killed himself, committed suicide because it was just too much. You know, a lot of times, especially with Esau, when you can't cope, it's the easiest thing. You just check out, OD on some pills, or shoot yourself in the head, or whatever. Seen Esau do that too, right? When they can't cope, they just go out, jump off a ledge. You got to be man. I can't even understand or try to comprehend that type of grief to say you're going to jump off a ledge. or you're gonna get a gun and pull the trigger. That's unconceivable to me to think about someone doing that. It tells you in Ecclesiasticus, even if you had gone through some types of travail and you was feeling down on yourself, it tells you in Ecclesiasticus, I'm sorry, Wisdom of Solomon. Yeah, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 12. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 12 says, seek not death in the era of your life, and pull not upon yourselves destruction with the works of your hands. Meaning to kill or harm yourself. When you've done wrong or things seem bad, don't look to go and take your life. There's always the opportunity of repentance for Israel. There's always a room for repentance for Israel. We see what happened with even Paul, who was injurious to those who were following after Christ. He was given a second chance, right? So you always have that opportunity for repentance. It says, verse 13, for Yahweh made not death, neither hath he pleasure in the destruction of the living. For he created all things that they might have their being, and the generations of the world were healthful, and there is no poison of destruction in them, nor the kingdom of death upon the earth. So it's showing you that it was never intended or created for us to go out there and commit sin or to choose death as opposed to life. So that was Wisdom of Solomon 1, 12 to 14. So now back in Second Maccabees 10. It says, I'm at 14, yes, come. It says, but when Gorgias or Gorgias was governor of the holds, he had hired soldiers and nourished war continually with the Jews, right? So now when he got set up, he went and had hitman for hire, right? And he nourished war, meaning at every opportunity, he had conspiracies set up to go out and have the people come against us, right? Like against the Jews. Like we read for the last chapter, when we was dealing with Antiochus, it says that he came against us without cause. Meaning, no, it's not that he didn't care. It means that there was no reason for him to come against us in the manner that he did. That's like when you have someone who murders someone, right? It's without just cause, right? You're not doing it because he did something against you from a form of revenge. You're doing it out of envy, or you're doing it out of covetousness, right? You want to take his car, you want his wife, you want whatever, and you go out and choose to murder him without just cause. So it's the same thing when they came against us. We hadn't done anything to them. No reason. That's the same thing that happens right now. We don't do anything to anyone else. They're quick to go and say, yes, we do black on black crime. We kill ourselves, right? But let's look at that on both sides. The reason why that even exists is because of the conditions that have been placed upon us, right? The lack of the normal resources, opportunities, wealth, food, land, all of that, history, identity, causes us, a people who are vastly ignorant in that capacity, without given the proper tools to reason properly, this would happen. We would act like animals. Exactly. So we've been put in a condition to act that way, right? But on the other hand, on the flip side, we don't do anything for the most part to anyone else the same way that they do to others. We're not invading different countries and killing and bombing and doing this. We don't do that, right? It is their motives. It's not our motives. We have been conditioned to accept everything, right? Don't look for retribution. Don't look to get revenge. Just forgive and forget, and just move on, right? So in this case here, he's now forging these wars against us, putting out propaganda and conspiracy and all different kind of things. Same thing that happened during the time of Esther with Haman. Haman went out and put propaganda out to the people that were around about for them to come against us, right? To have a reason to want to kill us when we hadn't done anything. He was the one that was the problem. So reading on in verse 15, and therewithal the Idumeans, having gotten into their hands the most commodious holds, kept the Jews occupied, and receiving those that were banished from Jerusalem, they went about to nourish war. So the Idumeans, who are the Idumeans? The Edomites, right? It says that they got the most commodious holds. When it says commodious, what does that mean? Commodious. Don't think of a commode, but the most commodious holds. Huh? It says hold. When it's talking about a hold, it's talking about a location or a place, right? So when it's talking about the Idumeans got the most commodious holds, they got the best places, the most spacious, generous, substantial. They had a lot of resources, whatever. They was put in, they took the best areas in order to forge what they needed to do. And then what it said it did is it put the Jews in an occupied state. Right. If you pay attention to what's going on over in the Middle East and Israel right now, it tells you that the Palestinians are under occupation. What that means is they're in that region, but they have someone over them keeping them in certain areas. They're living in an occupied state. They can't freely go where they want to go. Whereas the Israelis are free to roam here and there. They're not under occupation like how the Palestinians are, right? Because their areas are more favorable for them, right? Whereas here, it's the same thing where the Idumeans went and got the most commodious holds, the best areas, and put the Jews in an occupied state. Right, where we can't freely go here, go to that river, go to that location, go to that mountain. You don't want to just move that way because you may run into a trap and you may run into an army. So you got to stay over here in this location. Yeah, where they have confined you, right? Where until they get other people to come in and take you down. So I'm going to read that again. Verse 15, and therewithal the Idumeans, having gotten into their hands the most commodious holds, kept the Jews occupied, and receiving those that were banished from Jerusalem, they went about to nourish war. It says, then they that were with Maccabees made supplication and besought Yahweh that he would be their helper. And so they ran with violence upon the strongholds of the Idumeans, right? So just like what we read last time, whereas with Timotheus, and they said, listen, if he come across this river, we can't fight against them. His reputation precedes him. He ain't afraid. They got afraid, right? But the only reason why he was able to do that is because the Most High was his help. The Most High was strengthening him. The Most High was defending him, fighting for them. So here, even with they're in this occupied state where the Idumeans have them kind of cornered, so to speak, he now again calls on what? The help of the Most High. They went and bowed down and prayed to the Lord. And then after he prayed to the Most High, boom, they went and charged, right? They didn't wait for them to come and attack them. They're the ones that got their backs to the wall. And they said, you know what? We coming out to you, right? That's a heavy spirit where you're always on the initiative, right? They weren't really so much. Judas and them didn't really think about the defensive. They were on the offensive. We're going to take the fight to you. And that's what they did. It. They went out vitally to go fight them, right? It says again, verse 17. I'm going to read verse 16 again. Then they that were with Maccabees made supplication and besought Yahweh that he would be their helper. And so they ran with violence upon the strongholds of the Idumeans. Verse 17. And assaulting them strongly, they won the holes and kept off all that fought upon the wall, and slew all that fell into their hands, and killed no fewer than 20,000. Right? So it said they violently went after them, and they assaulted strongly. Meaning they fought valiantly against these Idumeans, right? And it says that, remember when we read about them fortifying the walls during the time of the rededication of the altar, right. All that came against that wall, they was killing them, right? Killing them, slaughtering them, and then they gave the tally of about 20,000 men. It's hand-to-hand combat. Sometimes they use animals, but for the most part, this was, force against force with swords and whatever different kind of thing. This wasn't sitting afar off shooting a AR or an M16 or a tank or planes flying by. No, this is man to man meeting you in the field, running across the river to come and jump upon you, right. Chasing you down, right? That's why it says when you read in certain scriptures in the Apocrypha, it says that they fled and they ran and they was killing the hindmost part of them, because as the crowd is running, those who's on that back line is getting it. Right. You in the front of the line, you're a little bit better, but you on that back line, you getting it. That sword is hitting your back. Right? Yeah. It says, reading on verse 18, and because certain who were no less than 9,000 were fled together into 2 very strong cities, having all manner of things convenient to sustain the siege. So you had about 20,000 that got slaughtered of the Idumeans by the Maccabees, right? Mm-hmm. Then you had about 9,000 who made it away. Okay. And then they fled into 2 very good cities that they were able to lock themselves up. Gabar. Castles? What did I say? Cities? Yeah. Yes, 2 very strong castles that they had enough resources to sustain them for a long time, right? That they could lock themselves up in the castle and get by and try to wait them out, right? They all outside. We'll wait them out. We'll wait a month or 2 months. We got enough food. We got enough water. We good, right? So that was their thinking. It says, verse 19, Maccabees left Simon and Joseph and Zacchaeus also, and them that were with him, who were enough to besiege them, and departed himself unto those places which much more needed his help, right? So he's like, all right, we got them, they locked up in the castle, right? They in the siege. All of us don't need to be here for us to defeat them. Right. So I'm gonna leave a few people here while I go fight other battles that's more pressing than this. You 3, 4 good men and the armies and the men that's with you, y'all can handle that while I go and continue on, right? Proper, battle management as far as for leaving different people to tend to different affairs. It wasn't coming out that, and for the siege, it was going to possibly a time-consuming thing because they're in a castle. So now you have to figure out getting battering armor, things to break down the walls and break down to get in, right? So that was going to take time, or wait them out, right? So we're going to go fight something else. Y'all handle this one. Verse 21. 20 of Salat. Verse 20. Now they that were with Simon, being led with covetousness, were persuaded for money through certain of those that were in the castle, and took 70,000 drachms and let some of them escape, right? So now Simon was one of those men that he left to take the siege, somebody got to Simon. It says a gift destroyeth the heart, right? And they said, listen, we'll give you some money, right? For our lives, right? You always see that in the movies when it's time for somebody to get taken out. They were like, oh, I give you whatever you need. Yeah. I got you, whatever you need. Money, cars, I give you whatever it is to, exchange for their lives, to ransom themselves. So this is what happened with Simon here, listening to one of the individuals or some of them that persuaded him, and he took the money and let them escape, right? Him not thinking of what the potential repercussions of that is. He thinking, hey, I'm rich. That's why it says that he was led with the spirit of covetousness, meaning, man, I can get some money, I can get some wealth, I can live like a king, right? Yeah. And he's not thinking about the safety of the people. He's just thinking about his own self. Right. It says in verse 21, but when it was told Maccabees what was done, he called the governors of the people together and accused those men that they had sold their brethren for money and set their enemies free to fight against them, right? So he said, now I'm gonna have a little small council. Now I'm gonna tell them what happened. I'm gonna explain to them what you've done. You thinking it's just you taking this money. No, you sold out your people for money because you set them free that they're not going to go and get more people, more armies to come and fight against your brothers. What you could have just took them all out right then and there.
Right, by keeping them closed up.
Yeah, or just killing them. Verse 22. So he slew those that were found traitors and immediately took the 2 castles. Right. So here it is. Sometimes you leave a task for somebody else to see if they can handle it. Right. This is how you prove somebody. Sometimes you prove a parent proves his kids, a teacher proves their students, right? A general proves his colonels. Like they go out and give them certain tasks to see if they're worthy enough of passing that test. It's like, all right, you dealt with that one. Okay, you dealt with this one, right? They failed, right? They sold their people out for money. So as a form of to rule out that type of spirit, Maccabees killed them and then went and took the castles, which they were supposed to take anyway. It says in verse 23, and having good success with his weapons and all things he took in hand, he slew in the 2 holes more than 20,000, right? So you already had probably about 11,000 or more that was in the castle. Had to be more, right? 9,000 fled and it was held up in that castle. So you had to have about maybe 15,000 that was already there within that castle compound. Because when it just says castle, just don't think of the castle. You got to think of the whole compound.
Almost like a city.
Yeah, almost like that. It's like, if I'm not sure how many people watch Game of Thrones, but when you watch Game of Thrones, you have that, but you have a whole, like I said, like a miniature city compound area behind a wall, right? Yeah, so it was 20,000 people got killed that was in those 2 castles, right? Not to mention, you don't know the others that had escaped, right? Right, those escaped. So now, reading on, it says in verse 24, now Timotheus, whom the Jews had overcome before, when he had gathered a great multitude of foreign forces and horses out of Asia, not a few, came as though he would take Jewry by force of arms. So now, when we read prior to y'all, when y'all came here in the class, we read about Timotheus, how he aforetime came against Israel a few times. Not once, he went and gathered force and came back again, but lost both times. Had all of his men of the armed forces that came, they got taken out. But he himself was not present that he was taken and killed. So he went and got more reinforcements. So now he done went and got more foreign forces and got more horses or animals from out of Asia. It says not a few. So it wasn't a small army or small force. He wouldn't got a big, huge army to now come back again to fight against Jerusalem. It says in verse 25, but when he drew near, they that were with Maccabees turned themselves to pray unto Yahweh, and sprinkled earth upon their heads, and girded their loins with sackcloth, right? So seeing what they had now, this is like a little bit much. So they again turn to the defender, turn to the one that gives them help, which is the Most High, and humbled themselves by putting on sackcloth and sprinkling earth upon them, right? To show a form of humbling. It says in 26, and fell down at the foot of the altar and besought him to be merciful to them, and to be an enemy to their enemies and an adversary to their adversaries, as the law declareth, right? So they now reverted back to what was written in the law, which you find in Exodus. Let me use my bigger Bible. It's hard to see over here. Exodus chapter 23 and verse 22. Gabar, if you can read that. This is where they got this law from that they're quoting or in prayer to the Most High.
Exodus chapter 23.
Exodus chapter 23, verse 22.
Take down what you got there. All right, Exodus chapter 23 and verse 22. It says, but if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies and an adversary unto thine adversary.
Right. So if you do everything that I asked of you to do, I'll fight for you.
Right.
Right? I'll fight for you. How so? Read on.
For my angel shall go before thee.
What?
My angel shall go before thee.
So the Most High is going to send an angel to go before you when you fighting. So this has happened in the past where the Most High when send out the angels to go and fight the army that we're fighting against, and we don't even have to lift up a sword.
Right. You take care.
He's taken care. He's done it, right? But this is a part that's in the law. The law is stating that if we do what he asks of us to do, he'll fight for us. So much so that he'll send an angel to go out before you. Read.
And bring thee in unto the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off.
And he will what?
Take care of them all.
Cut them off.
I'll kill them all.
That's what that means.
Right? I'll kill them all. If you do that, I'll take care of it for you. Right? So this is what Judas and the men are praying right now. They're remembering this law and they're quoting this in their prayer. Right? So now let's go back to 2 Maccabees 10. I'm going to read 26 again. It says, and fell down at the foot of the altar and besought him to be merciful to them and to be an enemy to their enemies and an adversary to their adversaries, as the law declareth. So after the prayer, they took their weapons and went on further from the city. And when they drew near to their enemies, they kept by themselves, right? So they left from prayer and went out, left the city to go into the region where Timotheus had this army with all these horses, right? But they didn't engage right away. It says they kept by themselves, right? Verse 28. Now the sun being newly risen, they joined both together, right? So when the sun rose, right? So this is now in the evening, they went and probably pitched their tents, and at sunrise, now is about to start the battle. It says, the one part having together with their virtue, their refuge also unto the Lord for a pledge of their success and victory. The other side making their rage leader of their battle. So it's giving you the inspiration behind the two different sides. One is more so on the Most High, or letting the Most High be their leader. The other side is rage, right? Without cause, right? Because these are hired men, right? They have been pumped up with conspiracy and propaganda to feel a way against us. But we are defending ourselves, and we are now relying on the Most High. So this is the two spirits that's now coming to engage in battle. Verse 29. But when the battle waxed strong, there appeared unto the enemies from heaven 5 comely men upon horses with bridles of gold, and 2 of them led the Jews, right? So here's 5 men on horses that appear out of the sky, that come out of the heavens. There you go. Because we just read it in the law when the Most High says, hey, you do what I say, I'll be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries, and I'll send my angel before you. Right. So now as they about to engage in a war, boom, the enemies look up and they see 5 men on horses, these angels coming out the sky, right? 2 of them is now leading our army to go and fight against them. That's what it says. 2 of them led the Jews and took Maccabees betwixt them and covered him on every side with their weapons and kept him safe, but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies, so that being confounded with blindness and full of trouble, they were killed, right? So here it is. Imagine you was one of the soldiers and you going out the war, you run, you running and you charging. Then all of a sudden you see the enemies, like they kind of stop and look, and you charging, and all of a sudden you seeing these angels on horses coming out of the sky, and they're rolling with you, right? Maccabees is going too. And now Maccabees, who's the leader of the host, as far as for the army, they go and they surround him and they protect him, right? One on both sides, so that nothing is going to happen to him. And at the same time that they're protecting him, they're shooting out lightnings at the enemies, right? Lightning is going to blind them. They're like, oh, what the heck? You know, when lightning strikes and people get afraid and hitting, sometimes it'll strike somebody and burn them up or whatever. They shooting out lightnings at all of them, the men, the animals, all that. And they like, oh. And as they going through that, they can't see, they coming and slicing and dicing, right? But as one of who was with the army, can you imagine how that would pump you up?
Right. You more energetic.
Man, like that right there lets you know, like sometimes you'll pray and you'll have faith that the Most High is going to help you in and help you do this. But when the Most High gives you that confirmation right there, then he sends the angels. And you looking and you fighting with the angels. That's what's going to happen in the kingdom. When Yahushua come back, the angels is coming, right? The angels is coming. The angels is going to be fighting. Christ is going to be fighting, right? Along with us, along with the people. Right. So for at this instance, you running and all of a sudden you like, yo, and you see them shooting out lightnings. You like, man, ain't no way we losing the day. Ain't no way. Right. So now that spirit is on. You talk about someone on level 10, you on level 20 right now. Right. You got all kind of spirits going through you to kind of give you that charge to go and just annihilate anything, right? So that has to be a heavy, for those men that was there, it had to be deep. I can imagine after the fact, like, you know, sometimes when the dust settles, like, you know, killed them and slaughtered them all, and the angels depart, right? And then you sit back and you think about what just happened, right? It's like you at this area, and then you go back to the city. And let me tell y'all what happened. Listen, you had to be there for this one. You ain't even gonna believe it. Listen, the angels came. What? What are you talking about? Listen, man, the Most High sent the angels from the sky. They was protecting Judas. They was shooting out lightning things and everything. You're like, what? Listen, and everybody is confirming it. Yeah, man, when you got not just one person, not just three persons, you got the whole army that was there confirming, yeah, this is what went down. Now you know, it's like, it's one confirmation. Listen, there's no way I cannot do what I'm supposed to do now.
Right. That's the problem.
I gotta keep fighting. I gotta do what the Most High. If the Lord is gonna fight for us like this, man, I'm gonna go all out to the death, right? Because you don't see anything else. If the Most High is gonna be there, you don't even see yourself dying,
Right.
right? But again, this is moments in time when the Most High will provide that help. Every time it doesn't happen, right? Sometimes the Most High just allow you to go and fight.
Right.
He'll give you the spirit of might where you can overcome. Sometimes you'll lose the battle because of sin, right? You'll go out there and you think you're gonna beat them, and all of a sudden you're like, man, we done lost 2,000.
You kicked my ass.
Yeah, they kicked our behinds. Then you go back and you pray and you give supplication, and you figure out, you bethink yourself, what happened? What have we been doing? We got to fix that. We got to address this so that this doesn't happen again. So this is the things that happen sometimes with the Most High and how he operates, because we see it in the readings, in the history, where sometimes we rise, sometimes we fall, sometimes we overcome, sometimes we fall victim to the captivity or plague or whatever. All right. So I'm going to read that verse 30 again. And took Maccabees betwixt them and covered him on every side with their weapons and kept him safe. Man, I wanted to see what kind of weapons they had. What kind of weapons the angels was charging with. I wanted to see what their sword looked like. Man, it says, but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies, so that being confounded with blindness and full of trouble, they were killed. And there were slain of footmen 20,500 and 600 horsemen, right? So about 20,000, almost 26,000 soldiers, men on foot, got killed, along with the 600 that they got that was on horse. Yeah, all right. It says in verse 32, as for Timotheus himself, he fled into a very strong hold. This guy, man, from what we was reading before, back in the first Maccabees, the 5th chapter, he's never there, or he always gets out, right? He always get out of it. But we'll see what happened to him this time. It says, as for Timotheus himself, he fled into a very stronghold called Gazara, where Charis was governor. So now this Charis, as we're going to read on, is somebody that's related to him, that's over this realm. It says, but they that were with Maccabeus laid siege against the fortress courageously 4 days. So this place was it tells you, is a very good stronghold, defended, properly walled up, and different things to protect it. So it took them 4 days to crack that nut, to get in there, to be able to revenge against Timotheus for what he tried to come and do. It says in verse 34, and they that were within, trusting to the strength of the place, blasphemed exceedingly and uttered wicked words. So while they in and they, battering the wall or whatever, they screaming out all kind of blasphemies, right? We're not talking about your mother this or your mother that. We're talking about blasphemies against us, against the Most High, all the while we trying to come in. But it said they trusting that they good, that their place is secure, that their fortification, nothing can penetrate it, right? It says in verse 35, nevertheless, upon the 5th day, early, 20 young men of Maccabeus, Maccabeus' company, inflamed with anger because of the blasphemies, assaulted the wall manly, and with a fierce courage killed all that they met withal. All right. So they probably was on that first line of offense, not defense, but the first line of offense. And they hearing all of this. They hearing this stuff for 4 days. And after a while, the spirit got them when they was just mad because of those blasphemies. And they went and took that wall. And when they took that wall, they took anything that was in their way, right? Broke through and got in and just started wilding, right? It says, verse 36, others likewise ascending after them, whilst they were busied with them that were within, burnt the towers, and kindling fires, burnt the blasphemers alive. And others broke open the gates, and having received in the rest of the army, took the city, right? So they went, and the first 20, they go into town. So while they doing that, here comes the second wave. The first 20 gets in, and they occupying whoever those soldiers are. They taking them down. And now here comes more coming in. So now while they fighting, they're like, we about to tear this place down. So now they're going and burning the places, and they find those individuals who was talking all that talk. Right. And they strapping them up and burning them alive in the city. While this is all happening, while they still fighting. Verse 37, and killed Timotheus that was hid in a certain pit, and cherished his brother with Apollophanes. So when I first read this a while ago, what reminds me of is how they say they got Saddam Hussein, right? He was curled up in a pit, in a hole, a foxhole or something, and they went and got him out of there. So this is like Timotheus, who had done all this stuff, who was probably just like the rest of them, proud, thinking that their place is fortified, that it can be impenetrable. Right. So then all of a sudden, when they break through, that courage depart. Right. He went and fled and hid in the doggone pit. But these men coming through, they ain't forget who was the captain of their host. We got to find that guy. And they looking through everywhere. Oh, look who we have here. Timotheus. Grab his behind. They probably grabbed him by the neck, popping him upside the head, kicking him, doing all kind of stuff before they actually went and killed him, right? We don't read what kind of torture they probably did until it just says that they killed him. Right. But probably in another history that pertains to the Greeks, you may read about the death of Timotheus, where it talks about other things that's not written in this regard. But it lets you know that they got him and they killed him. Exactly. It don't say that they tortured him, but I'm saying that one could surmise that, but you may read it in another history on how he came to his death. Okay. Right? Right. It says in verse 38 now, when this was done, they praised the Lord with psalms and thanksgiving, who had done so great things for Israel and given them the victory. So when you look at Thanksgiving as it pertains to what we're reading now, even in the Maccabees, several times it's mentioned this way. Several times it's after the war or after the conquering or killing of a people, right? Getting the victory because they tried to come against us. And you put that in perspective in line with the same type Thanksgiving that happens here in America, where they went and got the victory over the Native American Indians and the Seminole Indians, right? And took their land and killed them, right? And then they now had a feast of what? Thanksgiving, right? So here it is, after we defended ourselves, we went and praised the Most High and had thanksgiving or gave thanks to the Most High for allowing us to receive the victory. And I know pretty much after that, we had a joyous occasion. We feasted, right? Took the spoils and had a good time, because now that's what happens usually after you get a war. You start looking around and start congratulating each other, right? Doing all those things. Man, after the dust settles, you get your young and you having a good time, right? Because especially after you put your life on the line, especially after the angels done came and fought side by side with you, man, can't even imagine. That's going to be another thing for me to comprehend in that day, Lord's will, that when it happens, we be fighting side by side with Uriel and Michael and those other unnamed angels that are there, that are present with Yahushua, right? To see that, man. So these brothers were a part of the first glimpses of, you know, the Most High actually sending down the angels to defend and fight with us in the war and succeed. Right. So this is a beautiful story. And I always talk about the Maccabees as far as for a storyline, you know, outside of Yahushua. It's my favorite book, the Maccabees, the storyline, because you can take a couple chapters and make a movie out of it. Not even the whole books, just a couple chapters. They can give you, you know how sometimes movies start already with the backstory, right? But then it moves forward. You can go do that with the Maccabees. You can just deal with Timotheus himself, or take Nicanor. What happened with Nicanor and Judas Maccabees, and make a movie out of that. What happened with Timotheus and Judas Maccabees, and make a movie out of that. What happened with Jonathan, and make a movie out of that. No, there was rumors of what's his name that did Passion of the Christ. What's his name? He was in Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, a few years ago, was rumored that he wanted to do a Maccabees movie or exploit. But it never came, because when I heard about it, I was like, oh! Now, knowing that it's not going to be the right cast, but just to see the storyline and see how it would play out. Right. I still haven't gone and seen Samson. I've seen the trailers, but I want to go see Samson to see how much of it is aligned with the scriptures. You know, movies, sometimes they will embellish on it. But again, with this, there's so much content in here. You don't even embellish too much. There's so much, right? There's so many scenes. When you pay attention to a movie, there's so many scenes that can already be depicted based on what we just read in these 2 chapters. Even just Antiochus, what happened with him when he went to Persia? He got defeated, came back, heard about the rumor, then he was going to go to Jerusalem, and all that happened with him. The letters that was written, the tributes that was taken away, all that could be a doggone short film. There's just so much in the Maccabees that could be touched on, but you know, it's beautiful. I guess because, you know, I like those Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones type setting type movies, and this kind of fits right in that. You know, fits right in that realm. All right, so that concludes the Sabbath service for today. Let me see if I have the next week's readings handy. So let's see what we have here. Today is the 17th. So according to this, next week we'll be in Leviticus 17 and 18. But let me check, because I think there was 1 week where we skipped, or we went back. Salak, give me 1 second. Right now, again, I have Leviticus 17 and 18 for next week's Sabbath service, but I just want to confirm that. All right, Kun. I'll leave it at that. If not, we'll readdress it during the week. But yeah, right now I think I have Leviticus next week for the Sabbath service. All right. Also, keep in mind, reminder, Passover 30th will be at the Ramada for those who are planning to attend. If you need an address, if you don't have it, please contact the brothers. Let us know. We'll get that to you, as well as for the preparation. Start reducing your leavened food, unless it's for a day or two. Don't try to get anything that's gonna long lasting, because you have to remove it out of your houses. But then keep in mind the more spiritual aspect of the leaven being removed out of your houses, right? Out of your spiritual house. So in the upcoming weeks, if the brothers, I know I was away a couple of weeks, but if the brothers haven't started going over it, we'll start touching on Pesach scriptures that we normally don't get to go through during the Passover. We'll start going and touching on those in the upcoming classes to prepare our spiritual house for that. All right. As well as, I think, I know the brother Zabak reached out to me to get the Passover menu. I'm trying to find it on soft copy. I'll have to get with Kahan Nabiyah and Elder Zaquan to see if the one that we have is still pertinent for right now. We may want to make some modifications to it, change it up for the times of a lot of the questions or uncertainty of certain things. We might want to readdress it. So we'll try to get that out to Lord's will in this upcoming week, as well as the new right, Spirit's right point, the new High Holy Day calendar, right? So we have to get the new High Holy Day calendar out for all the upcoming holy days for this year, the new moon list for the new moons for this year, as well as for the Passover menu, right? So we got some things to get out to the congregation. All right. Again, so with that, we're going to do send out the closing prayers. Most High's will. Everybody was filled with something from this service. Some aspect of the storyline here was able to enlighten you, encourage you, sustain you in this journey that we have, and the privileged area of being a servant in the Most High's army, of being a son or a daughter for the Most High. Some aspect, anytime we come together, we look to get re-energized and re-plugged in. So Most High's will, that was done. As always, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, while Yahweh Shah, for the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that we have been blessed with to sustain ourselves until Yahweh Shah returns. All right. So with that, Shalom Yasha'Allah. Happy New Year. Happy Sabbath. Enjoy the remainder of the day. Again, remember, you can cook. This is a new year, new moon on this day, even though it's a Sabbath. Enjoy it. Still stay in the spirit, but enjoy it. And let's prepare ourselves for another 12 months. All right. Shalom. Stay tuned for the prayers. Somebody get the blinds.
They probably really want to do that movie because it was us fighting them.
Fighting them, huh?
Yeah, fighting the Edomites.
Fighting the Edomites, yeah. Probably right, Kabal.
I mean, it was other people the Edomites had hired, but it was the chief dogs was the Edomites, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably right.
That's real.
Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Parya Hagapan, Thawara Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Ath Yasha'Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shah, that gives us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shah with Israel. Madu upon you, O Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushah, Shammai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalat, Mayaka Allah, Waha Allahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shema Isle, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakazayak, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Rabiam, Da'aith, Rabiam, Bayana, Rabiam, Sabalangwa, Rabiam, Amawan, Rabiam, Aqua, Rabiam, Ahabiam, Rabiam, Haganah, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Kata Ayamnawa, Laha Akim, Wa Akiwath, Wayasha Allah, from Yad, Wa Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, so water, Amun. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers of angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection. And forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. So be it. On his prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabatya Saparim, Shema, Yasharella, Yahweh, Allah, Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. All right, again, a Shar Shabbat or Happy Sabbath, as well as a Shar Ra'ah Shana, Happy New Year. All right, and with that said, Israel, Shalom.
Shalom.